That subtle sense you have about your own magnetic presence, your intuition is absolutely right. Every woman possesses an innate understanding of her own energetic signature. Yet society often conditions us to doubt this natural wisdom. You've likely noticed how certain women seem to effortlessly captivate attention, while others, despite conventional beauty or success, remain somehow forgettable. This isn't about luck or genetics. It's about accessing something far more profound. Your body already recognizes the difference between authentic magnetism and performed charm, even when your mind hasn't caught up yet. We've all experienced moments when we felt completely ourselves, radiant, mysterious, fully present, and witnessed the profound impact this authentic state had on those around us. Perhaps you dismiss these instances as coincidence or luck, when in reality, you were accessing something far more powerful, your connection to the archetypal feminine energy that Jung called the Anima. These weren't random occurrences, but glimpses of your true energetic blueprint. The problem is that most women never learn to sustain or cultivate these states consciously. Instead, we're taught to perform versions of femininity that drain rather than energize us. What if those moments of magnetic presence weren't random occurrences, but glimpses of your authentic, energetic blueprint? What if that discomfort you feel when trying to be the cool girl or constantly available isn't personal inadequacy, but wisdom guiding you towards something more powerful? Your nervous system already knows the difference between sustainable attraction and exhausting performance. That fatigue you feel after trying too hard to be likable isn't weakness, it's information. When you align with your authentic energetic signature, being magnetic becomes effortless rather than exhausting. This framework will teach you to distinguish between manufactured charm and authentic feminine magnetism, between emotional neediness and sovereign presence, between being pursued for convenience and being treasured for your irreplaceable essence. You'll learn why some women remain unforgettable decades after brief encounters, while others are forgotten despite years of devoted attention. The difference isn't in what they do, but in who they are when they're not doing anything at all. This is about becoming so authentically yourself that you naturally attract those who resonate with your specific frequency. The masculine psyche operates on specific psychological principles that most women never learn to recognize. Men experience attraction through what Carl Jung identified as the Anima, the unconscious feminine archetype within every man's psyche. This isn't about physical appearance or performance. It's about awakening something ancient and primal within the masculine unconscious. When you understand these mechanisms, you stop trying to be everything to everyone and start being irresistibly yourself to the right people. The Anima responds to authenticity, depth, and mystery, qualities that cannot be faked or manufactured. Emotional contrast creates the foundation of this attraction, yet most women resist their natural emotional range in favor of artificial consistency. Men become psychologically addicted to the feelings you evoke, not to you as a static person. When you naturally oscillate between tender and strong, calm and intense, you create an emotional symphony that resonates with the masculine need for depth and complexity. Women who maintain emotional monotony, always agreeable, always predictable, fail to activate this deeper psychological mechanism. Your emotional range isn't instability, it's the fullness of being human, and men find this authenticity magnetic in ways they often can't even articulate. The theater of constant availability destroys mystery faster than any other behavior, yet modern dating culture pressures women into immediate responsiveness. When you're always accessible, always responsive, always willing to drop everything, you rob the masculine imagination of the space it needs to invest emotionally. The masculine psyche thrives on pursuit, on earning, on gradually uncovering layers of feminine complexity. Carl Jung once said that where convention rules, there's little room for authenticity, and the convention of instant availability actually works against natural attraction dynamics. Men need psychological space to develop emotional investment, and constant accessibility eliminates this essential element. Your body already knows when you're performing versus when you're authentically present, sending you clear signals that most women have learned to ignore. Notice the difference in your breathing, your posture, your energy levels when you're trying to be what you think someone wants versus when you're simply being yourself. Physical tension often signals that you're abandoning your authentic energetic signature for a false performance. Your nervous system recognizes the exhaustion of constant accommodation long before your mind admits to the pattern. This somatic wisdom is your most reliable guide to authentic versus performed femininity. The self-abandonment cycle begins when women confuse emotional availability with constant accessibility, creating a downward spiral of resentment and depletion. You lose yourself in trying to be everything to someone else, creating resentment and exhaustion that ultimately destroys the very connection you were trying to preserve. The very adaptability that makes women powerful becomes self-destructive when applied without boundaries or wisdom. This cycle is so common that many women mistake it for love itself, not recognizing that healthy relationships require two complete individuals choosing each other. The irony is that self-abandonment makes you less attractive, not more, because it eliminates the very qualities that created the initial attraction. Men can sense energetic desperation from considerable distances, and this recognition triggers biological responses that work against attraction rather than for it. When your happiness depends on their attention, their texts, their approval, you broadcast a frequency that actually repels healthy masculine energy while attracting those who enjoy being needed rather than choosing you for your completeness. This isn't about judgment. It's about understanding that neediness activates caretaking responses rather than romantic attraction. The masculine psyche distinguishes between temporary vulnerability, which creates intimacy, and chronic emotional hunger, which creates obligation. Learning this distinction transforms your entire approach to connection. Carl Jung observed that the Anima archetype represents the bridge between conscious and unconscious realms within masculine psychology, making it one of the most powerful forces in human attraction. When a woman embodies authentic feminine energy, complete within herself yet open to connection, she activates this bridge, creating profound psychological resonance that transcends ordinary attraction. This explains why some women remain unforgettable decades after brief encounters, while others fade from memory despite extended relationships. The Anima responds to depth, authenticity, and mystery, qualities that emerge naturally when a woman is aligned with her true self, rather than performing a role. Jung understood that this archetypal activation happens below conscious awareness, which is why manufactured attempts to be feminine often backfire. Cultural conditioning teaches women to be constantly accommodating, always nice, perpetually available for others' emotional needs, directly contradicting the natural rhythms of feminine energy, which flows between receptivity and boundaries, warmth and mystery, presence and independence. The good girl conditioning that many women receive actually works against their natural magnetism by eliminating the contrast and complexity that the masculine psyche finds compelling. Society rewards women for being convenient and predictable, yet these very qualities diminish their archetypal power. Learning to honor your natural rhythms over social expectations is often the first step towards reclaiming your authentic feminine presence. Childhood experiences often shape our relationship with our own magnetism in ways that either enhance or diminish our natural power. Many women learned early that love required constant giving, that boundaries were selfish, that mystery was manipulation, lessons that create adults who exhaust themselves trying to earn love through endless availability. If you were praised primarily for being helpful, accommodating, or mature beyond your years, you may have learned to associate love with self-sacrifice rather than mutual appreciation. These formative experiences create neural pathways that equate worth with usefulness, making it difficult to believe you could be valued simply for being yourself. Healing these early patterns often requires consciously practicing receiving without reciprocating, being mysterious without explaining, and setting boundaries without justifying. The modern world's emphasis on instant communication and constant connection works against the natural pace of feminine energy, which requires cycles of presence and absence to maintain its power.
Text messaging, social media, and dating apps create artificial urgency that disrupts the organic unfolding of attraction and emotional investment. The digital age has compressed the natural timeline of courtship, eliminating the space that allows mystery and anticipation to build. Women who adapt to this accelerated pace often find themselves exhausted and confused about why their connections lack depth. Understanding that healthy attraction requires time to develop helps you resist the pressure to be instantly available and transparent. The feminine principle includes natural rhythms that cannot be rushed without losing their essential nature.
Some women never develop beyond the seeking approval stage because they weren't taught that their intrinsic value exists independent of others' recognition, creating a perpetual cycle of performance and disappointment. Without this foundation of self-worth, every interaction becomes a performance designed to extract validation rather than an authentic exchange between whole individuals. The seeking approval stage is natural in adolescence, but becomes problematic when it extends into adulthood without resolution. Women stuck in this phase often become chameleons, adapting their personality to match what they think others want, rather than discovering and expressing their authentic selves. This pattern not only exhausts the woman, but also fails to create lasting attraction because there's no consistent self for others to connect with. The crystallization of neediness occurs when temporary vulnerability hardens into permanent identity, transforming natural human needs into chronic emotional hunger that consumes both giver and receiver. What begins as natural human need for connection transforms into chronic emotional hunger that consumes both giver and receiver. Men sense this energetic deficit and either flee or take advantage, but they rarely respond with the deep attraction that comes from encountering a complete person. This crystallization often happens gradually, as small compromises of self accumulate into complete self-abandonment. The tragedy is that neediness destroys the very connection it seeks to create, because authentic intimacy requires two whole people choosing each other from fullness rather than lack. Understanding these origins helps you recognize that emotional self-sufficiency isn't coldness or unavailability. It's the prerequisite for authentic intimacy that creates space for genuine choice rather than obligated caretaking. You cannot offer someone your overflow if you're operating from emptiness, and trying to do so creates resentment on both sides of the relationship. Emotional self-sufficiency means taking responsibility for your own happiness while remaining open to sharing that happiness with others. This foundation allows relationships to enhance your life rather than complete it, fundamentally changing the energy you bring to every interaction. When you need nothing but want to share everything, you become irresistible in ways that neediness never can achieve. Emotional contrast mastery involves learning to honor your natural emotional rhythms rather than flattening yourself into artificial consistency that bores both you and others. Men become addicted to the emotional range you embody, not chaos, but authentic variety that reflects the fullness of human experience. Practice expressing tenderness when you feel it, strength when it's needed, passion when it moves you, without apologizing for not being the same person every moment. This isn't about being moody or unpredictable, but about allowing your genuine emotional responses to flow naturally rather than forcing yourself into a narrow range of acceptable feelings. The key is that these contrasts must be authentic. Manufactured drama or artificial mood swings will backfire because they lack the genuine emotional truth that creates attraction. Strategic emotional independence requires cultivating genuine happiness that doesn't require external validation, creating an inner stability that becomes magnetic to healthy masculine energy. This involves developing hobbies that fulfill you, friendships that nourish you, goals that excite you, all independent of romantic relationships. Before entering relationships, build a life so rich and satisfying that partnership becomes enhancement rather than completion.
When you're genuinely content alone, you choose relationships from abundance rather than need, fundamentally changing the energetic dynamic. This doesn't mean becoming self-sufficient to the point of not needing anyone. It means becoming so full in yourself that you can love freely without the desperation that repels authentic connection. The art of selective revelation teaches you to master the difference between being mysterious and being deceptive, creating intrigue through authentic depth rather than manufactured withholding. Share your depths gradually with intention to those who've earned access through consistent behavior rather than empty promises. Keep sacred aspects of yourself protected until you're certain someone can hold them with appropriate reverence. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about honoring your own complexity and allowing others to discover you over time. The masculine psyche is wired to value what it has to pursue and earn, so giving everything away immediately eliminates the psychological investment that creates lasting attraction.
Cultivating sovereign joy means developing the ability to find genuine pleasure in your own company, becoming so interesting to yourself that others' attention becomes enhancement rather than necessity. This isn't about becoming antisocial, but about becoming so interesting to yourself that others become curious about what you know that they don't. Practice activities that genuinely delight you, regardless of whether anyone else understands or appreciates them. When you truly enjoy yourself, others sense this authentic contentment and want to be part of your world. Sovereign joy is magnetic because it's rare. Most people depend on external stimulation for happiness, so someone who generates her own joy becomes naturally fascinating. Presence as currency transforms your attention into something valuable and sought after, rather than something freely given to anyone who asks. In our distracted world, the ability to be completely present becomes incredibly valuable and increasingly rare. Practice giving your full attention when you choose to engage, then completely withdrawing that attention when you're focused elsewhere. This creates powerful psychological contrast that men find irresistible because it makes your presence feel like a gift rather than a given. When your presence is truly present, not divided between multiple distractions, people feel the intensity of your focus and begin to crave it. Scarcity through selectivity isn't about playing games, but about honestly assessing whether someone deserves access to your time and energy based on their behavior rather than their potential. When you're genuinely selective about who receives your attention, those who do gain access value it exponentially more than if it were freely available to everyone. This selectivity must be authentic, based on real standards and genuine preferences rather than manufactured unavailability. The goal is to become so valuable to yourself that you naturally screen for people who can match your energy and investment. True scarcity comes from having a life so full and purposeful that not everyone can fit into it. Allowing masculine investment involves creating genuine opportunities for them to contribute, solve, protect, and provide for you in ways that feel natural to them, without compromising your own competence or independence. This doesn't mean becoming helpless, but rather allowing your competence to coexist with moments of receptivity that let men feel needed rather than merely tolerated. The key is learning when to step back and allow someone else to handle something, not because you can't, but because you choose to receive their care. This receptivity must be genuine. You can't fake appreciation for someone's efforts, and men sense the difference between authentic gratitude and obligatory thanks. The validation of this impact cannot be understated. Chronic people-pleasing and emotional self-abandonment cause real psychological and physical damage that extends far beyond romantic relationships into every area of life. Women who consistently ignore their own emotional truth in favor of others' comfort develop anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue, and a host of stress-related physical symptoms that doctors often can't fully explain. The body keeps score of every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile when you want to cry, every time you make yourself smaller to make others comfortable. This isn't melodramatic. It's physiological fact that emotional suppression creates genuine health consequences. Common symptoms of energetic depletion include persistent exhaustion that sleep doesn't cure, difficulty making decisions about even small matters, chronic anxiety about others' opinions of you, and a pervasive sense that you're never doing enough no matter how much you give. You might find yourself constantly anticipating others' needs while being unable to identify your own, or feeling guilty whenever you prioritize yourself in any way. Many women in this state develop what feels like allergic reactions to conflict, going to extraordinary lengths to keep everyone happy while slowly dissolving in resentment. The irony is that this people-pleasing behavior often creates the very rejection and conflict it seeks to avoid. The confusion that results from chronic self-abandonment explains why intelligent, capable women often feel completely lost when it comes to relationships and personal boundaries. When you've spent years adapting to everyone else's preferences, you literally lose touch with your own desires, opinions, and instincts. This creates a profound identity crisis that manifests as chronic indecision, imposter syndrome, and the haunting feeling that you don't know who you really are. You might find yourself changing your preferences based on who you're with, or feeling like you're performing a role rather than being yourself. This confusion isn't personal weakness. It's the natural result of abandoning your authentic self for extended periods. The specific erosion that occurs affects your ability to trust your own judgment, make decisions aligned with your values, and maintain relationships that truly nourish you rather than drain you. Over time, constant accommodation erodes your sense of self-worth, your confidence in your own perceptions, and your ability to recognize healthy versus unhealthy relationship dynamics. You may find yourself attracted to people who need fixing, avoiding those who are emotionally available, or feeling uncomfortable when someone treats you well because it doesn't match your internal sense of what you deserve. This erosion happens so gradually that many women don't recognize how far they've drifted from their authentic selves until they're in crisis. The isolation that results from this pattern separates you from potential sources of support, wisdom, and genuine connection, creating a vicious cycle that becomes harder to break over time. When you're constantly performing a role rather than being yourself, you can't form authentic friendships because no one knows the real you, including yourself. This isolation often masquerades as social success, as you may be surrounded by people who appreciate what you do for them without actually knowing who you are. The loneliness of being unknown while being constantly useful is particularly painful because it's invisible to others and often to yourself. Recovery from chronic self-abandonment requires deliberate steps to reconnect with your authentic preferences, emotions, and boundaries, often feeling uncomfortable or selfish at first because you've been conditioned to equate self-care with selfishness. The healing process involves learning to tolerate the discomfort of disappointing others while honoring yourself, practicing saying no without elaborate explanations, and gradually rebuilding trust in your own perceptions and preferences. This recovery isn't selfish. It's essential for your ability to contribute to relationships and the world from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Carl Jung taught that those who look inward awaken, and this awakening to your authentic self is the foundation of all genuine healing and growth. The energetic difference between authentic feminine presence and performed femininity is as distinct as the difference between a flowing river and a stagnant pond. Both may appear calm on the surface, but only one contains life-giving movement. Authentic feminine energy flows naturally between strength and softness, presence and mystery, availability and boundaries, creating a dynamic that the masculine psyche finds endlessly fascinating. Performed femininity, by contrast, maintains artificial consistency that quickly becomes predictable and therefore forgettable. Men sense this difference immediately, though they may not be able to articulate it.
The authentic woman feels alive and surprising even in stillness, while the performing woman feels static even in motion. Consistency and authentic feminine energy doesn't mean emotional flatness. It means reliable authenticity where your responses genuinely match your inner experience rather than what you think others want to see. A woman aligned with her authentic power might be tender one moment and fierce the next, but both expressions arise from genuine inner truth rather than strategic calculation. This creates trustworthiness at a deeper level than behavioral predictability because people sense they're encountering your real self rather than a carefully curated version. The performing woman exhausts herself maintaining an image, while the authentic woman energizes herself by expressing her truth. Mature individuals take responsibility for their emotional states, their choices, and their responses without blaming others or expecting others to manage their feelings for them. They communicate directly about their needs and boundaries without passive aggression, manipulation, or expecting others to read their minds. When conflict arises, they address it directly rather than avoiding it or escalating it unnecessarily. This emotional maturity creates safety for deep intimacy because both people know they can be honest without causing explosive reactions or having to manage the other person's emotional state. Immature individuals, regardless of age, expect others to regulate their emotions for them and often punish others for their own internal discomfort. Genuine capability in relationships manifests as the ability to be emotionally present without losing yourself, to support others without enabling them, and to maintain your identity while creating deep intimacy. This isn't about perfect communication or never making mistakes. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes, learning from them, and consistently choosing growth over being right. With capable individuals, intimacy flourishes because they can handle the emotional weight of the relationship without collapsing or lashing out. They don't expect their partner to never have negative emotions, but rather they embrace the human experience in all its complexity and take responsibility for their part. Genuine capability in relationships manifests as the ability to be emotionally present without losing yourself, to support others without enabling them, and to maintain your own identity while creating deep intimacy. This isn't about perfect communication or never making mistakes. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes, learning from them, and consistently choosing growth over being right. With capable individuals, intimacy flourishes because they can handle the emotional weight of the relationship without collapsing or lashing out. They don't expect their partner to never have negative emotions, but rather they embrace the human experience in all its complexity and take responsibility for their part.
The treatment you receive from emotionally mature individuals reflects their internal state of completeness rather than their assessment of your worth. They treat people well because that's who they are, not because of what they hope to get in return. They show up consistently not because they never have bad days, but because they take responsibility for managing their internal state rather than expecting others to tiptoe around their moods. They invest in relationships through action over time rather than through grand gestures or empty promises. This creates the safety necessary for authentic intimacy to develop because you know their treatment of you reflects their character rather than your performance. The synthesis of this journey transforms you from someone who seeks validation through accommodation into someone who naturally attracts authentic connection through self-possession and selective availability. You begin to understand that your discomfort with certain behaviors or treatment isn't oversensitivity, it's information about what aligns with your values and what doesn't. This shift from vulnerability to protection doesn't make you hardened or closed off. Instead, it makes you more genuinely available to those who can appreciate your authentic self. The protected feminine is more generous, not less, because she gives from overflow rather than depletion. Practical strategies for maintaining this balance include developing daily practices that reconnect you with your authentic preferences, such as spending time alone without distractions to hear your own thoughts and feelings. Learn to notice the physical sensations that accompany authentic versus performed responses. Your body will always tell you when you're abandoning yourself for others' comfort. Practice small acts of self-honoring, like choosing restaurants you actually want to go to rather than always deferring to others' preferences. These micro-practices build the muscle of self-awareness that supports larger boundary decisions. Elevating your standards means becoming selective based on how people treat you consistently over time rather than their potential, promises, or occasional good behavior. This selectivity isn't about perfection, it's about basic emotional safety, consistency, and mutual respect. You learn to trust patterns of behavior rather than explanations of behavior, actions rather than intentions, investment rather than interest. This doesn't make you demanding or difficult, it makes you discerning. The right people will appreciate your standards because they meet them naturally, while the wrong people will reveal themselves through their resistance to treating you well. Fortalecimiento, strengthening your intuition, involves learning to trust those subtle physical and emotional signals that alert you to energetic mismatches before they become obvious problems. Your body recognizes deception, manipulation, and emotional unavailability long before your mind processes the evidence. This strengthening of intuitive senses requires slowing down enough to feel these signals rather than rushing through interactions trying to be agreeable. Carl Jung observed that everything we deny in ourselves becomes part of our shadow. Learning to trust your intuitive responses means acknowledging that your comfort or discomfort with someone is valid information, not something to be overcome or ignored. Your new identity as a woman who honors her authentic self while remaining open to genuine connection represents a fundamental shift from seeking to choosing, from performing to being, from exhaustion to sustainability. You stop trying to be everything to everyone and start being irresistibly yourself to the right people. This doesn't guarantee you'll never experience rejection or disappointment, but it ensures that your relationships will be based on authentic compatibility rather than convenient accommodation. The woman who embodies these principles naturally attracts those who can appreciate her depth while repelling those who prefer surface-level interactions or one-sided arrangements. This selectivity serves everyone involved by creating space for genuine connection to develop, rather than settling for convenient but unsatisfying compromises.